Okay, guys, before I throw you into this worksheet with I think 13 examples, let's go over example number one so you understand the expectations for this and how this mirrors a lot of the work we would have done in microeconomics. First off, for each question, you want to do multiple things. Start with a basic aggregate demand, aggregate supply diagram in the classical model. So let's do that first, and you're going to do this for every example, and I know it's redundant, but I want you to practice what this looks like and hopefully the muscle memory builds. On the vertical axis, we have price level, and on the horizontal axis, we have output. And remember from our video lecture why we have to use those labels. We have an upward sloping aggregate supply curve, short run aggregate supply curve, let's call that, appropriately in the classical model, and a downward sloping aggregate demand curve. If applicable, and generally I ask you not to draw it unless you think it's a shift in that, because it just gets a little messier. If applicable, you draw a long run aggregate supply. If this curve, or if this example were shifting that, please don't draw that because it gets in the way unless applicable. So I'm going to erase that because I know this first example doesn't do that. Secondly, I'm sorry, one last thing, we're not done yet, is you want to draw the output equilibrium levels and label them on your axes. So we have equilibrium output and equilibrium price level. Now, notice that we did not say YP. YP would be the potential output level. I'm not asking you to determine a recessionary or inflationary gap. All I'm asking you to do is show me whether output goes up or down. So we don't need to label the potential output yet, or for these examples, but you could be asked to do that for future examples or starting with that. So now that we have our equilibrium levels noted, we need to identify which curve shifts in the given example and why you think that curve shifts. If you think two shifts might be possible, only pick one. Only pick the one that seems the most obvious, all things considered with the example. So this example says an increase in stock prices makes households or consumers feel wealthier. So if our giveaway here is that it's households or consumers, it should be obvious that we're going to increase aggregate demand. Now, the why is sort of tricky. Okay, so an increase in stock prices makes consumers feel wealthier. If we have our big buckets, our big categories of consumer, investment, government spending, or net exports minus imports, this definitely is going to fall with consumer spending. And to make the argument a bit more granular, you want to think about what about consumer spending it might affect. So this might be something that, as households feel wealthier, you have a decrease in the level of indebtedness. Not because their debt's going lower, indebtedness. Not because their level of debt's going lower, but because their income or their wealth is going up. So their perceived level of indebtedness or their level of indebtedness is going down relative to their wealth. Or you could say that consumer confidence is driving this. Either way, we have an increase in consumer spending that increases aggregate demand. So we did number two. Number two is multi-part. Number three, shift the curve on the graph and use arrows to show movement. The IB is real big on this, especially when you're doing your paper ones. So we're going to shift our aggregate demand curve to the right. It's a shift of the curve. Nothing else about the curve is going to change. So we're going to try to get it as close to parallel as we can. And I'm going to label that AD1 to show our new aggregate demand curve shift. With this, we then want to label where our new equilibrium levels are. So we have an increase in the price equilibrium. It's an inflation of prices. And we have an increase in our output. So if you use your labeling correctly, you don't have to write out number four. Number four, we showed the changes to the price level and the output on the graph. And we show movement of the original curve. That's what I would expect for each of your examples. Guys, I know I'm going to be out for a while. Go through all the examples here. If you have questions or you are not certain and you check with your buddy and you still don't know, make a note of that on your paper. When we have class together next, probably on Tuesday, we will go over these examples and pick up where you might have some discrepancies. Best of luck.